I uploaded 76 videos, and almost nobody watched. Welcome to day 37. Most people think failure happens when you lose money. They're actually wrong. Failure starts the exact moment you stop believing in yourself. For 37 days, a creator had been chasing the exact same goal, $500,000. And not because he needed a fancy car or to impress people. He just wanted freedom. But tonight, the numbers weren't looking good. The views were low, the subscribers barely moved. And for a moment, he asked himself a really dangerous question. What if this never works? Welcome to this explainer. Because that right there is the exact moment most people quit. Not when things get hard, but when they stop seeing progress. But our creator remembered something absolutely crucial. Every single successful person has a story nobody talks about. The months when nobody cared. The work nobody even noticed.
Maybe this was his version of that story. So instead of quitting, he opened his laptop, worked a little longer, and before finally going to sleep, he wrote one sentence in his notebook. The hardest part isn't failing. It's continuing when success is invisible. This is what we call the valley of despair. It's when you're putting in all the work, but the world is giving you absolute silence in return. And to understand just how crushing this phase really is, we can look at some incredible experiments from the creator world.
Take Ryan Trahan's insane 100-day isolation experiment inside the metaverse. He wanted to become the most famous person in this digital world. But man, by day 36, the reality of that invisible phase really set in. He was just staring at an empty virtual chair, experiencing this deep existential dread and seriously questioning his life choices. He literally wrote, "We have no friends online whatsoever." Because when you're grinding in isolation, whether you're building a business or literally living in VR, that silence can make you feel like you are entirely alone.
Think about the typical 100-day journey for a second. On day 1, you've got excitement, right? You're highly motivated. And by day 100, ideally, you have victory, wealth, and freedom. But right there in the middle, around day 37, is the invisible wall. It is a terrifying void of low views, zero sales, and total isolation. And you absolutely must survive this middle section to reach the prize. The problem is, your mind will play tricks on you. It's going to try to convince you to give up way before the momentum even kicks in.
We saw this exact same psychological wall hit Susie and Bailey. Remember when they were placed in that massive, blindingly white isolation cube by Mr. Beast? They were competing for $500,000 if they could just stay there for 100 days. Well, on day 34, a hurricane actually knocked out their power. They were left in utter darkness, eating canned chicken and facing mind-numbing boredom. They had to push through the exact same valley of despair where progress felt completely stagnant and the outside world felt a million miles away.
All right, let's move into part 1 of this explainer, escaping the traditional trap, where we look at trading time versus building value.
What's super fascinating here is that this psychological pain isn't just a gimmick for internet challenges. Entrepreneur Mark Tilbury points out it's actually the exact same barrier to building real wealth. The traditional route averages out to about 63 grand a year, trading your time for money with a hard ceiling on your freedom. Then you've got the new route, developing high-income skills and scalable systems. But to achieve that true freedom, you have to survive the invisible phase where your new skills just haven't compounded yet.
Moving on to part 2, the blueprint, how to actually break through that wall.
So how do you actually climb out of this valley of despair without losing your mind? Well, Tilbury lays out 3 actionable steps. Step 1 is consume, gathering resources from the experts. Step 2 is apply, testing what you've learned in the real world and critically allowing yourself to fail. And step 3 is educate, teaching those skills to others to create scalable systems. It's this cycle that keeps you moving when the results aren't obvious yet.
Let's look at a really cool micro case study of that apply step. In a MrBeast gaming challenge, a Minecraft builder named Harazon competed for $2,500 by building a giant birthday cake. It took him 30 hours of meticulous, totally unrecognized, invisible work just to perfect the terrain and the chocolate details inside the game. He had no idea if he was even going to win, he just had to put in those 30 invisible hours, trusting his own skill.
And this brilliantly illustrates a core truth about that apply phase. As Mark Zuckerberg actually said, the greatest successes come from having the freedom to fail. During your own invisible days, your projects might frankly suck. J.K. Rowling was rejected 12 times. Beyoncé made hundreds of songs before a massive smash hit. You have to give yourself permission to fail repeatedly while nobody is watching.
Which brings us to part 3, resisting instant gratification and the very real temptation to just quit.
Now here is the absolute trickiest part of this whole psychological battle. When the work is just exhausting, your brain literally screams for instant gratification to numb the pain. Take Susie and Bailey again. On day 20, with those blinding lights physically stinging their eyes, they were offered comfortable smart beds and an iPad to finally turn off those agonizing lights. The cost? A $50,000 deduction from their price. In a stunning display of willpower, they said no to protect their future wealth.
But here's the thing. Willpower is a totally finite resource, especially when you're trapped in the grind. Just look at this escalating list of temptations they faced. They rejected a $50,000 private chef. They rejected the smart beds. But eventually, they cracked. For $10,000, they bought a coffee maker. And later, they threw down over $100,000 for a mega bundle of items to make the rest of their stay feel a bit more like a vacation. Even the strongest wills occasionally cave when the pressure of the invisible phase just drags on.
But you know, sometimes playing it too safe actually causes the absolute most pain. On day 60, they were offered a mystery box for $50,000. They debated for an hour and finally said no. Well, the box was opened anyway to reveal their $50,000 back plus 2 free Teslas. Susie was devastated. She literally said, "I'll regret this forever." It's the absolute mental torture of second-guessing the grind. When success is invisible, every single choice feels impossibly heavy.
All right, part 4, building a scalable system to truly escape the grind.
Now, if you can push past those invisible days, you eventually reach mastery. But as Tilbury warns, just trading a high-income skill for an hourly wage, that just creates another 9-to-5. To truly escape, you have to build a scalable system. Take a burnt-out video editor, for example. He broke down his tasks, hired a low-skilled timestamper and a text editor, and reserved himself solely for high-level quality control. In doing that, he essentially bought back his time.
Because the ultimate reward for surviving the invisible phase is recurring revenue. Tilbury literally calls this the holy grail of business, and for good reason. Whether it's through scaling an agency or packaging your knowledge into courses and communities, recurring revenue is what makes your income predictable. It is the definitive escape from trading time for money. It's the ultimate victory of day 100.
And that brings us to our final section, part 5, the ultimate choice. Will you split, steal, or quit? So what happens when you finally reach day 100? You've survived the darkness, and now you have to face the ultimate test. For Susie and Bailey, that day finally arrived. They survived the lights, the friction, all of it. But before they could actually walk out, they were blindfolded and forced to make a secret choice, deciding the fate of their remaining $360,000. They were faced with the absolute classic prisoner's dilemma. Do you hit split, trust your partner, and walk away with half? Or do you hit steal and try to take the whole pot? The catch is, if you both steal, you lose everything. After 100 days of agonizing endurance, short-term greed could literally destroy the entire journey at the very last second. The countdown hit 0. The room lit up, and it turned green. They both chose to split. It's amazing, really. Enduring the darkest, most invisible days together had built an unbreakable bond between them. They didn't let greed ruin their victory. They secured their freedom because they remembered the shared pain of that invisible phase. So, as you look at your own journey, remember that failure isn't losing money. Failure is stopping when the success is just invisible. Because tomorrow you might hit your own day 37 wall. The views will be low, the progress will be silent, and you're going to be forced to make a choice that could change absolutely everything. Quit or continue. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you in the next one.